It's April Fool's Day. I basically played an April Fool's Day prank on myself, not knowing it. That's what I did. That's how I started my morning. I played an April Fool's prank on myself. But, yeah, April Fool's Day is one of those situations where it reminds me how much older I am. Because I used to take April Fool's Day so seriously. That was like my thing. And I would play pranks. I never played any mean ones, but I would always do something. I always would tell somebody something. I would make something up, and it would just be kind of ridiculous and out there, and I would run with it. And I always dug it. And then after about high school, it just kind of fizzled out for me, and I stopped it. I didn't do it. I remember occasionally I would have like kind of those pranks that like over the years people just sort of decided as a collective, don't do that. You know what I mean? I'll give you for instance, like one time an ex told me she was pregnant. That's not, and I think people mutually decided that's not an okay thing to do. Like, that's not that's bad karma. That's not, you don't prank that. That's not cool. But I've had that done to me before. Now, I, of course, knew it was an April Fool's prank right away. So I put it back on her, and I was like, well, there's no way it's mine, because I've done the math. There's no way it's mine. And she's like, what are you talking about? It could totally be yours. And I was like, no, it's for sure not mine. And also, I am infertile. Like I made a bunch of stuff up on, like, how I was, like, sure it wasn't mine. And then she goes, it's an April Fool's joke. And I'm like, yeah, it's not funny, by the way. I was like, I know it's an April Fool's joke. I know what day it is. But that's not an okay thing. I hope you're well. Thanks for saying hello. But that's not an okay April Fool's joke. Just so you know. Not a cool thing to do. Don't tell somebody you have an STD. If you don't, that's not, and I know people have done that, and then over the years, people have been like, that's not, there's other April Fool's jokes to play, and I'm not trying to be the April Fool's joke police here, but come on, it's not funny, first of all, and it's bad karma is what that is. It's really bad karma. I had a pretty good one in 5th grade. So this ties into Music Monday, which, by the way, we got a fun Music Monday story about Robert Smith of The Cure. But on one time in 5th grade, there was this magazine that used to come out. I don't know if it's still in existence, to tell you the truth, but it was called Musician's Friend. And the way Musician's Friend worked, this is like pre-internet, basically, or at least pre the internet as we know it today. This was when the internet was first kind of getting started. But, print magazines were still popular, and catalogs were still very popular. So there was this catalog. It was a nationwide thing called Musician's Friend, and it was basically just a magazine that had all kinds of amazing music equipment in it, and you could order it. And they had everything. I mean, they had a section dedicated to guitars, a section dedicated to basses, drums, keyboards, recording equipment, DJ equipment. You name it, Musician's Friend had it. And it was awesome. Musician's Friend, I would get it every month, and I would look at it, and me and my friends would look at it, and we would point to stuff, and we would circle stuff, and it was all shit that we could not afford. But I had my goofy little garage band, and we would circle PA systems that we fantasized about having. We were like, God, if only we had this PA system, you could actually hear the vocals when we practice. Because what we used to have to do, because our microphone was just attached to a shitty little amplifier, and our guitars were in other shitty little amplifiers, and our drummer had a fucking drum set, so that was loud. What we used to have to do is we would play our goofy punk songs, which whether we were in the verse or the chorus, it didn't really matter. As long as the drummer was going, we were good. That was all we needed. Just the drummer go, So what I would do is I would raise my hand when the song was over. And that's how we knew the song was over, because we could not hear my vocals. So that was how we would do it. We were a very, God, I think about that and I'm like, God, we had a fuck of a work ethic. We really wanted that so bad. We would, whenever the drummer's parents wouldn't let us rehearse in their garage because they were sick of us, what we would do is we would take the drum set a couple pieces at a time. And keep in mind, like, I grew up in Pennsylvania. Big fucking hills were everywhere. And the drummer and I didn't live, like, right down the street from each other. We lived a couple blocks away, and there were, like, 3 hills in between us. But nonetheless, we would take a wagon, and we had 2 wagons. We would load them up with as much drum equipment as we could. We would carry the drum equipment up to my parents' house, or whichever parents were going to let us rehearse, and we would just unload it one piece at a time. We would take the PA one piece at a time, load the wagons, carry them back up, unload it, set the shit up, and practice wherever we were allowed to practice. And then before we had a PA, we would have to, like, coordinate a thing where we would, I would raise my hand when the song was over. We would show up at open mics where we didn't realize you had to be over 21 to play. So they would turn us away. They would be like, you can't play. You're not over 21. Man. People don't like it. When you're under, like, when you're a teenager and you're young and you don't have your own place, it is hard as fuck being in a garage band. It's always hard as fuck being in a band. Being in a band is incredibly difficult. I don't know how anyone does it. I really don't. I mean, between figuring out rehearsal times with everybody and coordinating schedules, between finding a place to practice, between recording costs, equipment costs, if you want to tour, van costs, I don't know how anyone does it. I don't know how anyone is in a band today. Being a comedian is freaking, you just, there's a microphone, you're good. Your rehearsals are open mic nights. You just show up, you sign your name. And I'm not saying that's easy, it's not, but logistically, compared to being in a band, oh my God. So anyway, we would get Musician's Friend. That was the name of the magazine. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with it. We would page through that thing like motherfuckers. It was the coolest magazine in the history of ever. I circled all these guitars that I wanted but could not afford in a million years and did not deserve, quite frankly. Like, I was like, I want a Gretsch. That's a really good guitar. I was not worthy of one. I'm still not. So, the prank that I played on my friend... So Musician's Friend would do this thing where they would give away, you could enter to win, a rig. And if you won the contest, you could pick between 3 different rigs, either the guitar rig, or the keyboard rig, or the drummer's rig, the bass rig, or the recording/DJ rig. And it just had a fuckload of equipment. Like, it had multiple guitars. If you picked the guitar one, it had a bunch of guitars, amplifiers. All of them had recording equipment. Every single one had some recording equipment. They had tuners and picks, and that's not the fun stuff. The fun stuff is the multiple instruments they would give you. They would give you like 5 or 6 guitars. So they basically gave you about $30,000 worth of equipment, and you could enter to win this. So my prank that I played on my friend is I told him that I won. And I was like, hey man, I won a rig. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, dude. Like, my parents are freaking out because they're like, where are you going to put all this stuff? And they even told me, they were like, hey, look, some of the stuff that you don't know how to use or you're not ready to use, we can, like, sell it and we'll give you the money, like, just so it's not just taking up space and you don't have this stuff you're not able to use. And I told him that I was going to do, because at the time I was playing keyboard still and guitar. I was very poor at both, but was trying. And so I told him I was going to do a mix between the keyboard rig and the guitar rig, and they okayed that. So he actually responded with mild jealousy. Like he was like, wow, man, shit, that's crazy. I'm trying to get my parents to just buy me a bass, or I'm saving up money to buy a bass, and you got this rig. And I'm like, I know, man, I won. But the cool thing is for the band, and then eventually I broke it to him. It was an April Fool's joke. And he was actually mad. So he tried to get me back, but he was really bad at, at like playing pranks, at bullshitting, I guess. He was bad at bullshitting. Because what we would do is he would go up to me and he'd be like, hey, da-da-da-da-da. And I'd be like, really? And he'd be like, no. And I'm like, you gotta carry it on a little bit, bro. Like, I was trying to coach him. I'm like, dude, if you want to do an April Fool's joke, first of all, you got an uphill battle because I know it's April Fool's Day and I played a joke on you first. So I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you to do it. My April Fool's Day jokes got really good whenever AIM came about, because I would just fuck with my friends nonstop on AIM on April Fool's Day. And here's the thing, I didn't pretend to be anybody else. I would just like message them really weird stuff. Like I'd be like, you know what, man, this is all just a lucid dream or something like that. I would say something weird and just be like, I can see waffles in the air. It's just something bizarre. And they'd be like, Ron, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'd be like, Ron is just an imaginary construct. You feel like you've known him your whole life. Did you ever really know him? And they'd be like, Ron, what the hell? And then they'd call me. My one friend in particular, who was really fun to mess with because he was really gullible. He'd call me. He'd be like, Ron, what are you doing? Like, what are you typing to me right now? And I'd be like, what are you talking about? And he'd be like, Ron. And I'm like, dude, I'm not even home, bro. Like, I'm not even, because this was like right when we all got cell phones. I'd be like, I'm not even home. Or I'd say something else. Or maybe he'd call my landline and I would just say like, oh, I'm in the basement. I'm not on the computer or whatever. My dad's on the computer. That's what it was. Yeah, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. This was pre-cell phone, so it was still landline. But, only one person could be on the computer at once. This was the dial-up days. For anyone that doesn't know what any of this stuff is, Google it. Dial-up internet. It was this thing where the internet was shitty, and typically only one person could be on it at a time. Sometimes you couldn't even be on the phone if you were on the internet. You couldn't even do both. But I think we had 2 phone lines at my parents' house, so I could be on the phone and then someone else could be on the internet, but not, it was just one thing per person. So that happened. Like, I'd be like, I'm not even on the computer. My dad's on the computer. He's doing some emails for work or whatever. I would just make up. I'm like, dude, I'm not even on the computer. And he'd be like, no, you're messing with me. I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe someone must be pretending to be me. And then as soon as we would get off the phone, I would keep fucking with him again. Anyway, so April Fool's Day, I don't do it much anymore, but it was a good time. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and